Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Have a nice day, everyone. My lecture. I am Siti Husna Maab. Here I'm going to present my proposal on this seminar proposal day under title An Analysis of Joko Widodo Speech Act Used on Twitter. But before that, firstly, let's thank to Allah, the Almighty, who has given us His mercies and blessing, so we can attend in this happy online presentation without any troubles, inshallah, and obstacle. Secondly, salawat and salam to our Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, who has guided us from the darkness to the lightness, from the stupidity era to the cleverness era, from the dark to the dawns, like nowadays, namely Islamic religion. Alhamdulillah. Thirdly, I never forget to say thanks to Miss my lecturer on this seminar proposal subject, who has given me time to deliver my proposal today. Firstly, we are going to the chapter 1 in the backgrounds of the study. Ladies and gentlemen, all of us already know that in our English language department, of course, the main point of our proposal, it must be language. And of course, all of us already know also that language is the important tools for all of us, for all of human beings in this world to communicate and to understand each other. People communicate and understand each other using language, ladies and gentlemen. And according to Lister and Fay in 2017, that language is a system of arbitrary of vocal symbol used for human communication. That means language is the most frequently used in every human situation and every human in human life. An act of human communication is basically the transmission information or message from someone to the receiver. And ladies and gentlemen, language is studied in linguistics. Linguistics is the science to examine and study the language in general. Regional language, Indonesian, and also foreign language, in this case English. And ladies and gentlemen, we have to know that linguistics has several branches. So the micro-linguistic and also macro-linguistic. But here I will explain the micro-linguistic a little bit. The branches of micro-linguistic is phonetic phonology, and then pragmatist, morphology. There are several branches of linguistic: phonetic, phonology, morphology, syntax, semantics, and pragmatist. Pragmatist is the study of speaker, dependent meaning, and language. However, pragmatist doesn't only study the meaning contained in morphemes, words, or phrase, but also study the context in which an utterance is spoken and pay attention to the time and who is saying. According to Bardo P. Harlick in 2017, pragmatist can be stated a study of language used in certain time and condition. Pragmatist is the study of speakers' meaning based on situation. Sometimes we cannot understand well what someone's saying and what that's meaning. And sometimes what they are saying doesn't relate to what we translate it. I mean, somebody say A, that doesn't mean the meaning is A. Now we study in we studied and understand it in Pragmatist, ladies and gentlemen. Pragmatist is generally the study of natural understanding, and specifically the study of how people comprehend and produce a communicative or speech act. Now, speech act, ladies and gentlemen, speech act in linguistics is something expressed by an individual that not only present information but performs an action as well. Speech act, in this case, speech act is not only we present information only, but also an act in action. We should know the focus study of this proposal is the study focus on Joko Widodo's speech act that posted on his Twitter recently in 2021. In 2021, and the speech act that are described in this study take the Locationary Acts, Illocationary Act, and Perlocationary Act. Then the purpose of this study is to analyze the Locationary, Illocationary Acts, and Perlocationary Acts of Joko Widodo's speech act on his Twitter, and also to analyze the function of the use of Joko Widodo's speech act on his Twitter post recently in 2021. The theoretical and practical theory, the significant study here, theoretical and practical theory. Based on the purpose of the study above, the result of the study is to give something useful contribution for all people who wants to study English, especially in literature. So the result of the study gives more explanation about function of the speech act types in Joko Widodo post speech on his Twitter. Practical significance. There are three practical. The first is for the lecturer, and for the student, and the last is for the next researcher. The first, for the lecturer, this result of this study was expected to give contribution as a background of thinking for lecturer to increase their understanding about speech act classification in Joko Widodo's speech act post in 2021. And for the student, the result of this research can be used as a reference to improve their ability of student in understanding more about types of speech act and the function. And the last is for the next researcher, to give additional information for the next researcher who wants to conduct further research on the related fields as the study. In this chapter 2, I'm going to explain about the literature review and the research question. As what I explained in the reviews chapter in the background of study, there is Pragmatist. Pragmatist is, according to House and Hadar in 2017, Pragmatist is the study of the practical aspect of human action and thought, and the study of the use of linguistic sign, linguistic word, phrases, and sentences in actual situation. Ladies and gentlemen, Pragmatist is the key to the understanding of language. Pragmatist is the key to the understanding of language and the response that followed. It is basis for all language interaction. Without Pragmatist, it will be little understanding to understand the utterance's meaning and the speaker intention. So, according to Levinson and Inham in 2017, there are several definitions of Pragmatist related to the context. This is a very Pragmatist is important thing to learn, to study. So here is the definition of the Pragmatist. The first is Pragmatist is the study of those relations between language and the context, the contexts that are grammatical or encoded in the structure of language. Second is Pragmatist, the study of relation between language and context that are basic to an account of language and understanding. Pragmatist, the study of the ability of language. The third is Pragmatist, the study of ability of language to pair sentences with the context in which they will be appropriate. Pragmatist, in addition, Pragmatist is simply make us more easy to understand each other in what the speaker and the listener really mean on their utterances, on their context. Next is Speech Act. In Pragmatist, we will study the Speech Act. Speech Act is the study of delivery of word by speaker to listener with the intention to get the attractive attention from the listener. And there are two famous definitions of Speech Act by experts. The first is from Austin and second from Searle. Austin started his widely cited work by distinguishing between statements, which he prefers to call constative, and another type of utterances which he called performatives. This is according to Devi in 2021. Later on, Austin has abandoned the constative performative distinction to conclude that all utterances, constative and performative, have both a doing and saying element at the same time, and their meaning is wholly dependent on the context in which they are issued. As such, he designed a new architecture of the acts employed in issuing performative, locationary, illocationary, and verlocationary. This is not too far definition from Searle. Searle is one of Austin's students. Searle is major proponent of the Speech Act theory and has ideas from Austin about the Speech Act. And according to Searle, Speech Act or acts performed in the utterance of the sentence in general. A function of the utterance of the meaning of sentences doesn't in all cases uniquely determine what the Speech Act performs. For the speaker, its may mean more than what he says, but it's sometimes in principle possible to say, possible for him to exactly say what they mean. And according to Searle, this is what the importance of learning Speech Act, of study Speech Act and Pragmatist. And here is the level of Speech Act by Searle. The first is locationary, illocationary, and verlocationary. Locationary acts are Speech Act with word, phrases, sentence, and sentences according to the meaning by contain word, phrases, and sentences. For example, it is hot in here. It means that the locationary refers to the temperature of the day. It is hot in here. That means the situation of the day is hot. The temperature. And the second is illocationary. Illocationary act is an act of doing something with a purpose and a specific with a purpose and a specific function anyway. Speech acts can be considered as the act of doing something. Example: it is hot in here. It has meant that a request for someone to do something. For example, when I say it is hot in here, I give a signal. I give a signal for my friends, maybe to turn on the air condition or the fan. That's illocationary. And verlocationary act is a follow-growing influence effect to the hearer. The speech act can be called by the act of affecting someone. Example: it's hot in here. Such someone getting up and turning on the air condition. Because of the situation, it's hot, and then he turn on the air condition or the fan. So this is in this locationary, it's more about the effect affecting someone. Furthermore, Shirley in Amelizia 2020 classifies the communication function in illocutionary acts divided into 5 kinds. The 5 forms of speech that show the function that can be summarized as follows. The first is assertive, kemudian second is directive, expressive, representative, commissive, and declarative. Assertive has several branches such as stating, suggesting, and then boasting, complaining, and claiming. Directives, this is the intended of speaker to create the effect that the hearer takes action. For example, ordering, commanding, requesting, advising, and recommending. The third is expressive. Expressive is a form of speech that serve to express or show the psychology attitudes of speakers toward a situation, such as thinking, congratulating, pardoning, blaming, and praising. And then representatives tells about the truthfully of the utterance. In other words, it presents external reality by making their utterance or words fit with the world as they believe it to be. And then commissive, they express what speaker intends. What the speaker intends. Commissive is the utterance is produced to give action in the future. They are promising and vowing, planning, threatening, offering, and etc. The last is declaratives. This kind of speech act is quite special because the speaker utters word or statement that in themselves change the word via words. Next, why should Joko Widodo and Twitter on this proposal? This is related to my research question. What is the kind of speech act that Joko Widodo used most on his Twitter based on Shirley theory? So our sample is Joko Widodo. And what is the use of speech act that Joko Widodo used on his Twitter? Ladies and gentlemen, we know that Twitter is a free social networking microblogging service that allows registered members to broadcast short posts called tweet. In Twitter, we will know and find what a viral of the day by the hashtag on the Twitter. And we not like Facebook and the other social media. Twitter give us to follow anyone and unlike Facebook or LinkedIn, where members need to have raw social connection, anyone can follow anyone on public Twitter. And we're going to theoretical framework. I will read this for you all. This research is a qualitative research with focus on analyzing of Joko Widodo's speech act used on Twitter. The researcher used pragmatic point of view by considering the context in the process of analyzing. Since Pragmatist involves the context in this analysis, it is different from the other kind of analysis. Context is an important element in pragmatics because from the context, a utterance can have a different meaning or interpretation. In this research, the researcher used the context theory of Shirley. Shirley is what we explained before in the chapter previous. Shirley is one of our students. Shirley is major proponent of the speech act theory inherits in his idea from Austin. And according to Shirley, speech act or acts performed in the utterance of sentence are in general a function of the meaning of the sentence. The meaning of sentence doesn't in all cases uniquely determine what the speaker is saying. For speaker may mean more than what he says. but it is in principle possible to exactly say it. And then pragmatist is the key to understanding all of language attracting and the response that followed. It is the basis for all language. Without pragmatist, it little understanding to the utterance meaning and the speaker intention. And the researcher focused on the description of the kind of Joko Widodo's speech acts mostly used on his Twitter and the use of speech act that he used. Searle's theory of speech act is chosen to classify the types of the speech act. In this research, the researcher classifies the speech act of Joko Widodo's tweet on his Twitter recently in this year 2021 in the three kinds of speech act: locationary, illocationary, and verlocationary. This is based on theory in Searle's theory. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to the chapter 3. This is the methodology, research methodology. In this research, in this proposal, the research used the content analysis to find the research question answer. Content analysis is a research method used to identify patterns in recorded communication. Recorded here, not always in the voice but also in the writing. And the second is the setting of the study. In this study, the research will analyze Joko Widodo's speech and status by content analysis to find the types of the function of locationary, illocationary, and verlocationary utterance in Joko Widodo's status on the Twitter. The data of this research were the utterance from Jokowi's status, which was posted recently in 2021. With some of his status will take 5 until 10 status as a sample. And then the third is participant of the study. The subject of the study, of course, Mr. Joko Widodo, who is participating as an updater and on Twitter, a social network. He is President of Indonesia, who's active in social media. The writer takes the data by printing the data from Twitter app. And data collection, data key term, speech act, as what we said before, is the way to understanding someone utterance meaning and the speaker intention. Without speech act and pragmatist, it is a little bit hard to understand well what the intention and the meaning of the utterance. And Twitter is one of the application in the mobile phone, in our internet, in our technology now, and it's easy for all of us to know what the most viral of the day, and it's free for all of us to tweet and retweet everyone. And the instrument of this research is printing and instrument of the study. In this research, the writer used printer and computer as her instrument in getting and analyzing the data. Next, the technique of collecting data. The data of this research is collected by printing updating status on Mr. Joko Widodo post in 2021. After printing the data updating status, we are going to analyze 5 till 10 speech act of his status post. To obtain data and information needed in the study, research used observation data collecting technique. Observation can help the researcher to directly observe the expression or speech that are considered representative to be used as data. Then data analysis. There are 3 kinds of data analysis in this analysis. The first is reducing data. The research makes transcript of status post and identify types and function of speech Act based on the status that posts on Joko Widodo's Twitter. And data display. The research analyzed the classification of speech acts and displayed the data about Joko Widodo utterance in his status post on Twitter by using table explanation and making percentage. I will show you how the table presentation column. And then drawing or verification. The research makes conclusion, drawing or verification derived from the data displayed in the table. The next is describing and interpreting data so that the conclusion and verification of the use of speech act based on Joko Widodo's status on his Twitter. Well, thank you very much for your nice attention, and I'm sorry for all the mistake that I made. This is my task and my assignment, and wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.